of S&P Global. He's also the author of The New Map, Energy, Climate, and the Clash of Nations. He joins me now from Washington, D.C. Daniel, really good to see you. I want you to give me a sense of what your initial response when you heard of these blasts that were felt, and we're seeing leaks on these two pipelines. It seems that sabotage is a big probability here. And let's be honest, we've seen many of the pipelines being, cut because of what the Kremlin has been calling maintenance issues. It's really interesting to see it happening at this juncture.
Well, Eleni, I think this does reflect an escalation in the second front in the war in Ukraine, and that's an energy war in Europe, where Putin is clearly using energy, particularly natural gas, to try and create economic chaos and undermine the coalition. I mean, I guess there are really two. Obviously, it's not a coincidence that you had three of these. Whether the Russians did it, if they did, then it's a message that your energy infrastructure is vulnerable. But it's also very bizarre if they did it, because if they ever thought there'd be a stabilization in the relationship and they would resume the gas relationship with Europe, instead of saying shooting themselves in their own foot, they shot themselves in their own pipeline. But will take probably a few days to figure out who did this, but clearly somebody did this.
Look, we know that energy has been used as a tool, whether it's sanctions to hurt Russia or whether it's Putin, as you've just said, to cause chaos in Europe through energy security crisis. Who do you think is winning this fight?
Well, I think it's still, we're going towards the finish line, and the finish line is called winter. But the Europeans have moved fast to actually fill their storage, which gets them at least through this winter, and demand is down. So if the weather is not a tough winter, if not a really cold winter, I think Europe gets through this, but it gets through it with still pretty high prices. Even today, the price of natural gas in Europe is the equivalent of $400 a barrel of oil. So it's still going to put a lot of pressure on consumers and a lot of pressure on governments to provide subsidies and protect their consumers.
I mean, do you think Putin is going to succeed, as you said, to sow chaos in Europe? Eventually, you'd see the rise of populist movements. I guess that is the big fear that could be spurred by this energy crisis. And it's important to take a step back and look at the macro picture here.
Well, it is. I mean, we've just seen that in Italy, and we know that the National Rally, the right-wing party in France, increased its seats tenfold in the French Assembly. So that is his strategy. He said it publicly. He said economic hardship will bring populist parties to power, and he looks to those parties to break the coalition. So far, it hasn't worked, and even the new putative prime minister of Italy has said that Italy will stick with the coalition, but he's going to continue to put the pressure on, because I think, as Nick Robertson, or one of your reporters said, he is desperate, and we've moved from stalemate to something that seems to be moving more towards some kind of climax.
So let's look at the supply-demand scenarios that are playing out globally. And given that you've covered these kinds of crises before, and you frankly predicted that Ukraine would sort of be the big turning point between Russia and the West, how do you think this is going to end? Do you think that the West, and Europe in particular, have the tools at their disposal to try and avert a full-blown crisis?
Well, I think in terms of energy, they have scrambled. I think we've seen the Germans been particularly flexible in realizing they made a mistake by not necessarily being over-dependent on Russian gas, but not building energy security into it. And they're really pivoted towards the United States. And we see U.S. LNG, liquefied natural gas, almost becoming sort of the base load for European energy security when it comes to gas, replacing Russian gas. So I think that we've seen a surprisingly high degree of cooperation and an ability to change. But we do see that these governments are under pressure, and it's going to cost them a lot of money to get through this. But I think that they have demonstrated that they can be flexible, and I think the U.S. and other suppliers have stepped up. But it's let's put it in, unless you have an economic downturn, markets are going to be tight, not only for this winter, but next winter for Europe.
Yeah, let's just look at the oil and gas price market right now. Are you predicting more volatility? I mean, I guess so much uncertainty right now is being reflected in the numbers, and many say, the real demand supply dynamics are not sort of, evident in the numbers. And here's the thing, it's spurring inflation globally. The most vulnerable nations are coming under significant pressure.
Well, yeah, I mean, while Europe is under pressure, it means that, for instance, LNG, liquefied natural gas that was going to go to Asian developing countries, emerging markets, isn't going there. And they're either burning more coal or they're having blackouts or brownouts.
Yeah.
So I think that, that the overall, right now, commodity prices have come down somewhat. And it's really in response to what the central banks are doing, the expectation of recession. But one of the other things to note is that China has not been playing its normal role in energy markets because of the COVID lockdown. So if that bounced back, and I'll just say, I mean, you said it, it's uncertain. And coming December, when Europe puts its ban on the import of Russian crude oil, I think that's going to be a very decisive moment.
Yeah. And you rightly mentioned, if China really gets back on track, that is going to be very important, I think, in terms of what we see on the demand scenario. Daniel, Yergin, thank you very much for joining us today. It was great to have you on the show.